About a year ago, while hiding from my children in the shower, I discovered a lump in my breast. As an Ashkenazi woman over the age of 40, I was being watchful and groping myself regularly. I wasn't really expecting much, but during this shower hideout, I felt something I couldn't ignore. I got a hollow feeling, and the look on my obstetrician's face a few days later when I pointed it out to him didn't make me feel much better. After a biopsy that yielded good news, I met with the recommended breast guy. He explained to me that while I should be quite pleased with the results of the biopsy, he was actually only 98% confident in the results himself. My smile froze a bit as he explained that mistakes were known to happen, and if I wanted to be absolutely sure, I should have an MRI. Since my insurance was willing to cover it, we both shrugged genially and once again I returned to the scheduling nurse. I was confident that my procedure would be nothing more than a good excuse to lay down in a dark room for an hour. This time, the results were grim. The girls were both perfectly fine. However, the MRI, which was able to capture images of my vital organs from the lower ribs up, identified several tumors on my liver. This triggered multiple ultrasounds and 2 CT scans, which eventually determined that my liver was actually fine, but my kidneys were riddled with lesions. At this point, an early-stage breast tumor was starting to sound like a great idea. After weeks of dyes, scans, and exposure to more radiation than is probably healthy for a human, my doctor informed me that I was vomit, a victim of modern imaging technology. It turns out that 30 years of major advancements in medical imaging has introduced a dramatic increase in incidental findings, as well as expense, anxiety, and radiation exposure. Our internal organs, it turns out, are frequently riddled with benign imperfections that do best when left alone. But who's to say which one of us is a vomit and who among us is the lucky bastard saved by chance and modern medicine? So there I was, assuming, even hoping, I was the latter, frantically shelling out for tests and consultations that never seemed to end. After considerable expense and anxiety, 2 separate teams reviewed the data and came to the same conclusion: my breasts were spectacular, my word, not theirs. My liver was clean, cool, drinks on me. My kidneys were, with the exception of a small kidney stone rolling around, absolutely fine. I was told I should probably follow up with a urologist about that. Exhausted, I asked, "Is that really necessary? Are you in any pain?" My doctor asked. "No." "Then I think you've had enough," he replied. I left his office, gradually forgot the whole trying experience and secretly started to believe, as most healthy people do, that I was probably going to live forever. Then, a few months ago, while doing some yard work, I started to feel unwell. By 4 o'clock, I was nauseated, sweating, and writhing in abdominal pain. By 6 o'clock, after half an hour in the waiting room demonstrating honest, convincing agony for all the drug seekers around me, I was finally connected to an IV and told I was passing a kidney stone. "Oh yeah," I said in my sweet blissful haze. I forgot about that. A few hours later, I was treated and streeted, and warned that I hadn't yet passed the stone. I was told the worst could still be yet to come and handed a little crotch-sized sieve to pee through in the hopes I might catch the fucking thing. Why? Who? What am I supposed to do with it? I never got a clear answer to this question, but I went home to sleep it off and, as it turned out, pack for a business trip I was scheduled to take the next morning. "Well, obviously, you're not going," my husband said as he drove me home, massaging his nearly broken hand that I had gripped in agony earlier that day. "There isn't much you can do but drink all the water on earth, pee as often as possible, and wait. It's a boring gig, utterly lacking in glory." "Why?" "I'm fine," I lied. After all, it wasn't one of the several imaginary cancers I'd never actually beaten, so I figured I'd probably be fine. Considering all that vomit drama, my ongoing plan was to continue to ignore the living shit out of this junior varsity kidney stone. Also, as any stone survivor will tell you, there isn't much you can do but drink all the water on earth, pee as often as possible, and wait. It's a boring gig, utterly lacking in glory. Besides, the pain was almost gone even though the stone had yet to pass. So, armed with Tylenol, my husband's searing disapproval, and the pee sieve in my carry-on, I left the next morning promising to call with frequent pee updates. Once at the airport, I decided it would be best to try one more time to pass the stone before boarding the plane. And there, in a very busy airport bathroom, surrounded by strangers and with absolutely no fanfare whatsoever, I passed it. I carefully examined the contents of my trusty sieve and found that it had slipped through my urethra effortlessly, and was sitting there, almost as surprised as I was, awaiting further instruction. I was suddenly so proud of myself that I burst from my stall, sieve in one hand and phone in the other, and turned to the woman next to me at the neighboring sink. "Oh my God," I said, mania flag flying. "I just passed a kidney stone. Right there in that stall." I pointed over my shoulder and waited for her praise, like we knew each other. She was a good sport and tried to appear happy for me, but she quickly rinsed her hands, skipped the soap, and bolted. The stone and I took a selfie. I called my husband to announce the happy news. "Congratulations," he said, clearly relieved he wasn't going to have to rescue me from the tarmac in an ambulance. He encouraged me to keep the stone so a urologist could analyze it, but by the time I calmed down and realized I still had to make my flight, I'd lost my tiny pebble. Like a diamond breaking free from a deceased grandmother's engagement ring, I was truly sad about that. The stone had become a source of pride and a satisfying, tangible conclusion to an otherwise frustrating and expensive journey. Now, every time I dash through the airport, I pass that bathroom and remember it, and the moment I felt like a warrior queen giving birth to the moon.